Emma Rodriguez stared at her computer screen through tired eyes, the numbers blurring together like a cruel joke. The clock on her desk read 9:47 p.m., and the Sterling and Associates office building had grown eerily quiet hours ago. Only the hum of the air conditioning and the distant sound of traffic from downtown Phoenix kept her company as she struggled to finish the quarterly financial analysis that her supervisor demanded by morning. Her phone buzzed with a text from her babysitter. "Sofia keeps asking when you're coming home. I told her you're working hard for both of you. She drew you a picture. Can't wait much longer, though. Need to get back to my own family." Emma's heart clenched. Her 8-year-old daughter, Sofia, had already gone to bed without seeing her mother again. This was becoming too common, but Emma had no choice. Since her ex-husband David had left them 2 years ago for his secretary, providing for Sofia had fallen entirely on her shoulders. The child support payments were irregular at best, and her salary as a junior financial analyst barely covered rent in their small Phoenix apartment. Sofia's school supplies and basic necessities. The breaking point. The spreadsheet on her screen seemed to mock her as she realized she had made several calculation errors due to exhaustion. Hours of work would need to be redone. Emma rubbed her temples, feeling a headache building behind her eyes. She had been surviving on coffee and determination for weeks, ever since her supervisor, Patricia, had been piling extra assignments on her desk with impossible deadlines. "Maybe if you managed your time better, you wouldn't struggle so much," Patricia had said that afternoon, her voice dripping with condescension. "Some of us don't have the luxury of making excuses." The comment had stung, because Emma worked harder than anyone else in the department. She arrived early, stayed late, and never complained. But Patricia seemed to enjoy making her life difficult, perhaps threatened by Emma's natural talent with numbers and financial analysis. Emma's phone rang. It was her landlord. "Miss Rodriguez, I hate to call so late, but I need to discuss your rent. You're 3 days behind this month, Mr. Hendricks, I know. I'll have it tomorrow, I promise. I'm just waiting for my paycheck to clear. This is the second month this has happened. I'm sympathetic to your situation, but I have bills too. If this happens again, we'll need to discuss other arrangements." After hanging up, Emma stared at the phone in her shaking hands. Other arrangements meant eviction. She could not let Sofia lose their home, small and modest as it was. The weight of responsibility pressed down on her chest like a physical force. When dreams become nightmares, Emma tried to refocus on her work, but the numbers on the screen began swimming together. Her vision blurred as tears threatened to spill over. She had graduated summa cum laude from Arizona State University with a degree in finance, dreaming of a successful career that would give her daughter the life she deserved. Instead, she found herself trapped in a cycle of struggling to make ends meet while being treated like she was incompetent. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a bill reminder from Sofia's pediatrician. Her daughter's recent checkup and vaccinations had cost more than expected, and their basic health insurance had not covered everything. Another expense she could not afford but could not ignore. Emma pushed back from her desk abruptly, her chair rolling backward with more force than intended. She could not breathe properly in the suffocating atmosphere of the office. The walls seemed to be closing in around her. She needed somewhere private, where she could collect herself without anyone seeing her fall apart. The sanctuary of solitude, the executive bathroom on the 40th floor, was her destination. It was always empty at this hour, and she could have a few moments to compose herself before returning to finish her work. Emma walked quickly through the darkened corridors, her heels clicking against the marble floors that reflected the dim emergency lighting. She pushed open the heavy door to the women's restroom, grateful for the silence and privacy it offered. The bathroom was luxurious compared to the employee facilities on the lower floors, with soft lighting, marble countertops, and real towels instead of paper dispensers. It was a reminder of the world she was trying to reach, the level of success that still felt impossibly far away. Emma locked herself in the furthest stall and finally allowed herself to break down. The tears came in waves, carrying with them all the stress, fear, and exhaustion she had been holding inside. She cried for Sofia, who deserved a mother who could be present and provide stability. She cried for herself, feeling like she was drowning despite working so hard to stay afloat. She cried for the dreams that felt more distant with each passing day. The unexpected witness, her sobs echoed off the tile walls, creating a symphony of despair that seemed to amplify her feelings of hopelessness. Emma did not hear the soft footsteps in the corridor outside, nor the pause at the bathroom door. She was lost in her grief, allowing herself this one moment of vulnerability in a world that demanded she always appear strong. "Excuse me, is everything all right in there?" Emma's blood turned to ice. The voice was deep, concerned, and definitely male. She held her breath, hoping whoever it was would assume no one was inside and leave. But the voice came again, softer this time. "I don't mean to intrude, but I heard someone crying. If you need help, I'd like to assist." Emma recognized the voice now, though she had only heard it from a distance during company meetings. James Sterling, the CEO of Sterling & Associates, was standing outside the bathroom door, asking if she needed help. The mortification was overwhelming. The most powerful man in the company had caught her at her lowest moment. "I'm fine," she managed to say, though her voice betrayed her with its shakiness. "Just having a moment. I'll be out soon." "You don't sound fine," James replied gently. "Would it help to talk to someone?" Emma wiped her face with toilet paper, trying to compose herself. How could she explain to the billionaire CEO that she was crying because she could not afford her rent? That she was failing as a mother because work consumed all her time? That she felt trapped in a life that was nothing like what she had planned? The courage to open up something in his tone made her pause. There was genuine concern there, not the judgment she expected from someone in his position. Against her better judgment, Emma unlocked the stall door and stepped out to face him. James Sterling stood near the entrance, maintaining a respectful distance. He was taller than she had realized, with dark hair showing traces of silver at the temples, and kind brown eyes that seemed to see. Through her carefully constructed facade, he was dressed casually for him, having removed his suit, jacket, and tie. His white shirt sleeves rolled up as if he, too, had been working late. "I apologize for intruding," he said quietly. "I was walking past and heard someone in distress. I could not just leave without making sure you were safe." Emma looked at herself in the mirror, horrified by her appearance. Her dark hair was disheveled, her makeup smeared, and her eyes were red and swollen from crying. She looked exactly like what she was, a woman who had reached her breaking point. "I'm Emma Rodriguez from the Financial Analysis Department," she said, attempting to maintain some professionalism despite the circumstances. "I was just having a difficult evening." James nodded, seeming to recognize her name. "I've seen your work, Emma. Your analysis of the Henderson acquisition was exceptional. You have a gift for seeing patterns others miss." The unexpected compliment caught her off guard. She had not realized he even knew who she was, let alone that he had noticed her work. In a company with over 300 employees, she had felt invisible. "Thank you, Mr. Sterling. That means more than you know." The beginning of understanding James leaned against the marble counter, his posture casual and non-threatening. "What's troubling you, if you don't mind me asking?" "Sometimes it helps to talk to someone who's not directly involved in the situation." Emma hesitated. Every instinct told her to deflect, to maintain her professional image, and to get out of this embarrassing situation as quickly as possible. But something about his genuine concern, and the fact that she had already exposed her vulnerability, made her want to be honest. "I feel like I'm failing at everything," she admitted. "I'm a single mother trying to provide for my daughter, but I can barely keep up with bills. I work constantly, but it never feels like enough. Tonight I realized I might lose our apartment. I just couldn't hold it together anymore." James listened without interrupting, his expression thoughtful and compassionate. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment, as if considering his words carefully. "Being a parent is the hardest job in the world," he said finally, "especially when you're doing it alone. I lost my wife 3 years ago, so I understand the weight of feeling responsible for everything." Emma looked at him with new eyes. Seeing past the successful exterior to the man who had also faced loss and struggle, she had heard whispers about his wife's death, but had never considered how that tragedy might have affected him personally. "I'm sorry for your loss," she said sincerely. "That must have been incredibly difficult." It was, and it still is. "But what I learned is that we're often stronger than we think, and sometimes help comes from unexpected places." The moment of connection, Emma felt something shift between them, a connection that went beyond their professional roles. Here was a man who understood loss, who knew what it meant to carry the weight of responsibility for another person's well-being, The difference was that he had resources she could only dream of, but the emotional burden was something they shared. Your daughter is lucky to have someone who cares so much about providing for her, James continued. But remember that what she needs most is her mother, not perfect circumstances. The words hit Emma like a gentle revelation. She had been so focused on trying to give Sofia material security that she had lost sight of the fact that her presence and love were what mattered most. "Thank you," she said, meaning it deeply. "I needed to hear that tonight." James smiled, and for the first time, Emma saw him not as the intimidating CEO, but as a father who understood her struggles. "Would you allow me to help? Not as your boss, but as someone who believes in your potential and wants to see you succeed." Emma's heart began to race. Uncertain what kind of help he meant, but feeling hopeful for the first time in months. Something told her that this unexpected encounter in a bathroom would change the trajectory of her life in ways she could never have. Emma woke up the next morning feeling lighter than she had in months. Though she questioned whether her encounter with James Sterling had actually happened or if exhaustion had caused her to imagine the entire conversation, the memory felt surreal. Like something from a dream where powerful CEOs appeared in bathrooms to offer help to struggling single mothers. Her doubt disappeared when she arrived at the office, to find a message waiting on her desk. Written on Sterling and Associates letterhead in neat handwriting were the words, "Emma, please see me in my office at 10 a.m. We discussed some opportunities last night that I'd like to explore further. James Sterling." Emma's hands trembled slightly as she read the note. Her co-workers were already stealing glances and whispering among themselves. Patricia walked by her desk with a suspicious expression, clearly wondering why a junior analyst would have any business with the CEO. "Rodriguez, what's that about?" Patricia demanded, nodding toward the note. "I'm not sure," Emma replied honestly. "I suppose I'll find out at 10. Patricia's eyes narrowed. "Well, whatever it is, don't let it go to your head. Some of us have been here much longer and understand how things work around here." The proposal at exactly 10 o'clock. Emma knocked on the door of James Sterling's corner office. The space was impressive, but not ostentatious. With floor-tizzling windows offering a panoramic view of Phoenix, comfortable leather furniture, and family photos prominently displayed on his desk. "Please, come in and have a seat," James said, gesturing to the chairs in front of his desk. He looked every inch the successful executive this morning in his tailored navy suit, but his eyes held the same warmth she remembered from the night before. Emma sat down, her heart racing with anticipation and nervousness. "I've been thinking about our conversation," James began. "You mentioned feeling like your talents aren't being fully utilized in your current position. I'd like to offer you something that might change that." He leaned forward, his expression serious. "I'm creating a new position, senior financial strategist, reporting directly to me. The role would involve high-level analysis, strategic planning, and working on our most important client acquisitions. The salary would be significantly higher than your current position, with performance bonuses and comprehensive benefits." Emma's mouth fell open. This was beyond anything she had dared to hope for. "Mr. Sterling, I don't know what to say." "That sounds incredible, but why me? There are analysts here with more experience. Experience isn't everything." "Emma, you have something more valuable: intuition and intelligence. I've reviewed your work from the past 2 years. Your insights are consistently ahead of the curve, and your attention to detail is exceptional. Plus," he smiled slightly, "I believe in giving people the opportunities they deserve, not just the ones they think they're qualified for." The leap of faith. Emma felt tears welling up. But these were different from the night before. These were tears of gratitude and relief. "I accept," she said, without hesitation. "Thank you for believing in me when I was struggling to believe in myself. There's one more thing," James added. "The position comes with flexible hours. I know you have a daughter, and I want you to be able to be present for her. Success at work shouldn't come at the expense of family." Emma's heart swelled. Not only was he offering her professional advancement, but he understood her priorities as a mother. "How did you know that balance was important to me?" "Because it's important to me too," James replied, his voice softening. My son Tyler is 10, and I've learned the hard way that no amount of business success can replace the time you miss with your children. The new beginning. ES's first week in her new role was a whirlwind of learning and growth. James had assigned her to analyze a potential merger with a tech company, and she threw herself into the work with renewed energy. Having financial security allowed her to focus completely on her job without the constant worry about bills and rent. Her new office was on the same floor as James's, and she found herself looking forward to their daily strategy meetings. He challenged her thinking, encouraged her ideas, and treated her as an equal despite their different backgrounds. Emma began to see glimpses of the man behind the executive facade, someone who was thoughtful, funny, and surprisingly humble. "Your analysis of the Phoenix Tech acquisition is brilliant," James told her one afternoon as they reviewed her presentation. "You've identified risks that our entire legal team missed." Emma felt a flush of pride. "I just tried to think about what could go wrong and work backward from there." "That's exactly the kind of strategic thinking we need more of," James said, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her pulse quicken, growing attraction as the days passed. Emma began to notice small things about James that had nothing to do with work. The way he rolled up his sleeves when he was deep in thought, how he always asked about Sofia and remembered details about Emma's life outside the office, the genuine laugh he gave when she made jokes during their meetings. James seemed to be noticing things about her too. He brought her coffee made exactly the way she liked it. He made sure she left the office by 6 so she could have dinner with Sofia. When she mentioned Sofia's school science fair, he asked thoughtful questions and seemed genuinely interested in her daughter's projects. One evening, as they were finishing a particularly complex financial model, James looked up from his computer. "Emma, can I ask you something personal?" "Of course. When was the last time you did something just for yourself? Not for Sofia, not for work, just because you wanted to?" Emma paused, realizing she couldn't remember. Every decision she made revolved around her responsibilities. "I honestly can't recall." "Why do you ask?" "Because I think you deserve to be taken care of for once, instead of always taking care of everyone else." The first date, the next Friday. James appeared at Emma's office door at closing time. "I have a proposition for you," he said with a smile that made her stomach flutter. "What kind of proposition?" "There's a new art gallery opening downtown tonight. Good food, interesting people, and I happen to have 2 tickets. Would you like to join me?" Emma hesitated. "James, I don't know if that's appropriate. You're my boss, and people might talk." "Emma," he said, stepping into her office and closing the door behind him, "I'm not asking you as your boss. I'm asking as a man who would very much like to spend an evening getting to know you better outside of spreadsheets and profit margins." The sincerity in his voice melted her resistance. "I'd like that too, but I need to arrange childcare for Sofia." "Already handled," James said with a grin. "I took the liberty of hiring a highly recommended babysitter. She picks Sofia up from school, help with homework, make dinner, and stay until you get home. All expenses covered, naturally." Emma stared at him in amazement. "You thought of everything." "I try to be thorough when something matters to me." An evening of revelations, the Assisa Gallery opening was unlike anything Emma had experienced. The crowd was sophisticated and interesting. The art was thought-provoking. And James proved to be an engaging companion who knew, surprisingly, as much about contemporary artists. "I didn't expect a finance executive to be so knowledgeable about art," Emma said as they stood in front of a particularly striking painting. "My wife was an artist," James replied quietly. "She taught me to see beauty in ways I never would have discovered on my own." Emma felt a pang of something she couldn't quite identify. Jealousy seemed wrong given the circumstances, but she found herself wanting to know more about the woman who had captured James's heart. "What was she like?" Emma asked gently. James smiled, but there was sadness in his eyes. "Catherine was passionate about everything she did. Art, life, motherhood. She could find magic in ordinary moments. When she died, I thought I'd lost the ability to see the world through her eyes. And now," James turned to look at Emma, his gaze intense and meaningful, "now I'm beginning to remember that there's still beauty worth discovering." The confession. As the evening wound down, James walked Emma to his car. The Phoenix night was warm and clear, with stars visible despite the city lights. "Emma," James said as they reached his vehicle, "I need to be honest with you about something." Emma's heart began to race, sensing the gravity in his tone. "The position I offered you, while completely legitimate and well-deserved, wasn't entirely altruistic. I created it because I wanted a reason to work closely with you to get to know you better." Emma felt a mix of emotions. Part of her was flattered, but another part worried about the implications. "James, what are you saying?" "I'm saying that I'm attracted to you, Emma, not just professionally, but personally. You're intelligent, compassionate, strong, and beautiful. You've awakened feelings in me that I thought died with Catherine." Emma's breath caught. She had sensed the growing attraction between them, but hadn't dared to hope it was mutual. "I feel the same way," she admitted. "But this is complicated. You're not just any man, you're James Sterling. There's a world of difference between us. The only difference that matters is the one we allow to exist." James replied, stepping closer to her. "Emma, I don't care about social expectations or what people might think. I care about you. I care about what we could have together." The kiss that changes everything before Emma could respond. James cupped her face gently in his hands and kissed her. It was tender and passionate, filled with weeks of suppressed attraction and genuine emotion. Emma melted into the kiss, feeling alive in a way she hadn't experienced in years. When they broke apart, both were breathing heavily. "This changes everything," Emma whispered. "I hope so," James replied, his forehead resting against hers, "because I don't want to go back to pretending. I don't feel this way about you." Emma looked into his eyes and saw her own emotions reflected there. Fear, hope, desire, and something deeper that neither of them was ready to name yet. "Neither do I," she said, surprising herself with her boldness. As James drove her home, Emma's mind raced with possibilities and concerns. She was falling for a man who could give her and Sofia security beyond her wildest dreams. But she was also terrified of losing herself in the process. Could a relationship between them work? Or were they setting themselves up for heartbreak? One thing was certain. There was no going back to the way things were before. The walls they had both built around their hearts were crumbling, and Emma could only hope they were strong enough to handle what came next. The promise of tomorrow. When they reached Emma's apartment building, James walked her to the door like a perfect gentleman. "Thank you for tonight," Emma said. "It was perfect. It was just the beginning," James replied, taking her hand and bringing it to his lips for a soft kiss. "Emma, I want you to know that whatever happens between us, your job is secure. You've earned your position through merit, and that will never change." Emma felt a surge of respect for him. Even in the midst of their romantic connection, he was thinking about her professional well-being and independence. "Thank you for saying that. It means more than you know." As Emma watched James drive away, she felt as though she was standing at the edge of a cliff, about to jump into the unknown. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and questions, but for the first time in years, she was excited about what the future might hold. 3 weeks after their first date, Emma and James had fallen into a careful routine of stolen moments and professional discretion. They would meet for coffee before work, share meaningful glances during meetings, and spend long evenings working together that inevitably turned into deep conversations about their hopes and fears. Emma felt herself falling deeper for James with each passing day, but she was also increasingly aware of the whispers following her through the office corridors. Did you see how he looked at her during the board presentation? She heard Patricia whisper to another colleague, "Mark my words, there's something going on there." Emma tried to ignore the gossip, but it was becoming harder as their relationship grew more serious. James had been nothing but respectful, never making their connection obvious during work hours. But the chemistry between them was difficult to hide completely. One Tuesday morning, Emma arrived at the office to find an envelope on her desk with no return address. Inside was a single photograph, clearly taken with a telephoto lens, showing her and James kissing outside the art gallery on their first date. Attached was a note written in block letters. "Wonder what the board of directors would think about this." Emma's blood ran cold. Someone was watching them, documenting their relationship, and now they were being threatened. She immediately walked to James's office, her hands shaking as she knocked on his door. "The confrontation, James. We need to talk," Emma said. Closing the door behind her and showing him the photograph, James's expression darkened as he studied the image and the threatening note. "Who would do this?" he asked, but Emma could see the wheels turning in his mind. "I have a suspicion," Emma said quietly. "Patricia has been making comments about us for weeks. She's been with the company for 10 years and expected to be promoted to the senior strategist position." James set the photograph down and moved to Emma's side, placing a protective hand on her shoulder. "Emma, I won't let anyone threaten you or try to sabotage what we have. But what if they're right?" Emma asked, voicing the fear that had been growing inside her. "What if people think I only got this job because of our relationship? What if they think I'm using you?" "Look at me," James said firmly, tilting her chin up so their eyes met. "You earned your position through talent and hard work. Anyone who suggests otherwise doesn't know what they're talking about." Before Emma could respond, James's secretary buzzed the intercom. "Mr. Sterling, the board of directors is requesting an emergency meeting in the conference room. They'd like to see you immediately." Emma and James exchanged worried glances. The timing couldn't be a coincidence. The emergency meeting, James squeezed Emma's hand briefly before heading to the conference room, where he found the 5-member board of directors waiting with serious expressions. Board Chairman Robert Harrison motioned for James to sit down. "James, we've received some concerning information about your relationship with one of your employees," Robert began without preamble. "Emma Rodriguez, your new senior financial strategist." James kept his expression neutral. "What kind of information?" Robert slid the same photograph across the table. "This was sent anonymously to all board members this morning, along with allegations that Ms. Rodriguez received her promotion based on personal rather than professional reasons." "That's absolutely false," James replied firmly. "Emma Rodriguez is one of the most talented financial analysts this company has ever employed. Her promotion was based entirely on merit." Board member Margaret Chen leaned forward. "James, we're not questioning Ms. Rodriguez's abilities, but you must understand how this looks. A significant promotion followed by a romantic relationship raises serious questions about favoritism and potential legal liabilities. The relationship began after her promotion," James clarified. "And I would argue that my personal life is not the board's concern as long as it doesn't interfere with my professional responsibilities. But it is interfering," interjected board member David Walsh. "We've had complaints from other employees about preferential treatment. This kind of situation could expose the company to harassment lawsuits and damage our reputation." The ultimatum Robert Harrison folded his hands on the table. "James, we need you to understand the gravity of this situation. We're not asking you to end your relationship, but we are requiring that one of two things happen. Either Ms. Rodriguez transfers to another department with no direct reporting relationship to you, or she leaves the company entirely." James felt his jaw tighten. "You're asking me to choose between the woman I care about and her career? We're asking you to choose between personal desires and professional responsibility," Margaret replied. "This is about protecting the company and all of our employees, including Ms. Rodriguez herself." "I need time to discuss this with Emma," James said. Standing up from the table, "You have until the end of the week," Robert said. "We need this resolved before it becomes a bigger problem." The crisis James returned to his office to find Emma pacing anxiously. One look at his face told her everything she needed to know. "They want me gone, don't they?" she said quietly. James pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. "They're giving us options, but none of them are good. Either you transfer to another department or ... or I leave," Emma finished. "James, maybe this is for the best. Maybe we were kidding ourselves thinking this could work." "Don't say that," James said fiercely. "What we have is real, Emma. It's worth fighting for." Emma pulled back to look at him, tears in her eyes. "But at what cost?" "Your relationship with the board? The company your father built?" My professional reputation? Before James could answer, Emma's phone rang. It was Sofia's school. Ms. Rodriguez, this is Principal Martinez. Sofia has been in an accident on the playground. She's conscious and alert, but she's asking for you. We're taking her to Phoenix Children's Hospital as a precaution. Emma's face went white. I'll be right there. The moment of truth, James didn't hesitate. I'm coming with you, James. You don't have to. Yes, I do, he said, grabbing his car keys. Sofia is important to you, which makes her important to me. The drive to the hospital was tense and quiet, with Emma's worry about Sofia overwhelming her concerns about work. James drove efficiently through traffic, occasionally reaching over to squeeze her hand reassuringly at the hospital. They discovered that Sofia had fallen from the monkey bars and broken her wrist, but was otherwise fine. As they waited for the doctor to finish casting her arm, Sofia looked up at James with curious 8-year-old eyes. Are you my mom's boyfriend? She asked with the directness only children possess. Emma blushed, but James answered honestly. I'm someone who cares very much about your mother, and about you too. Sofia studied him seriously. Do you make my mom happy? I try to, James said. Do you think I do? Sofia looked at Emma, who was smiling despite her earlier tears. Yeah, she smiles more now. But are you going to stay, or are you going to leave like my dad did? The question hit both adults like a physical blow. Emma started to intervene, but James held up a gentle hand. Sofia, I can't promise that life won't have challenges, but I can promise that I will never abandon your mother or you. You both mean too much to me? The decision later that evening. After Sofia was settled at home with her new cast and a collection of get-well balloons James had bought, Emma and James sat on her small apartment balcony talking quietly. She likes you, Emma said. That's not easy to earn. She's protective of you, as she should be, James replied. Emma, I've been thinking about what happened today. About the board's ultimatum, about Sofia's question. Emma's heart clenched, preparing for him to say goodbye. I'm not willing to lose you, James continued. Not because of corporate politics or social expectations or fear of what people might think, but James, your company will survive, he interrupted. Emma, I've spent 3 years focused solely on work, on living up to my father's legacy, on proving I belonged in that position. But today, watching you with Sofia, seeing how much you both mean to me, I realized something important. What's that? Success, without someone to share it with, is just expensive loneliness. I don't want that anymore. Emma felt her eyes fill with tears. What are you saying? James took her hands in his. I'm saying that tomorrow I'm going to walk into that boardroom and tell them that Emma Rodriguez is not going anywhere. She's proven her value to this company, and if they can't see that, then maybe I'm working with the wrong people. James, you could lose your job. Then I'll start my own company, he said with a smile. With the most talented financial strategist in Phoenix as my business partner. The confrontation the next morning. James called an emergency board meeting. Emma waited nervously in her office, unsure what the outcome would be, but grateful to have someone fighting for her in the conference room. James faced the 5 board members with quiet determination. I've made my decision regarding Emma Rodriguez, he began. She stays in her current position, reporting to me, and our personal relationship continues. If you have a problem with that, you can find yourselves a new CEO. The board members exchanged surprised glances. Robert Harrison was the first to speak. James, you're putting us in an impossible position. No, James replied. You're putting yourselves in an impossible position by allowing anonymous accusations and office gossip to dictate business decisions. Emma Rodriguez has saved this company over $2 million in just 1 month through her analysis and insights. Losing her would be a catastrophic mistake. Margaret Chen leaned forward. James, what about the legal implications? The appearance of impropriety? Then let's eliminate the appearance, James said. I'm proposing full transparency. We'll issue a statement to all employees explaining that Emma's promotion was based on merit, backed up by her performance metrics. We'll establish clear policies about workplace relationships that apply to everyone, including me. and we'll let Emma's continued excellent work speak for itself. David Walsh looked skeptical. And if this backfires? If it affects company morale or our reputation? James stood up, his decision final. Then I'll take full responsibility. But I believe in Emma Rodriguez, both professionally and personally. And I'm not willing to sacrifice either relationship for fear of what might happen. The resolution after 2 hours of discussion and debate. The board voted to accept James's proposal with conditions: complete transparency about the relationship, establishment of new company policies regarding workplace romances, and a 6-month review period to assess any impact on company operations. James turned to Emma's office with a smile on his face. "We won," he said simply. Emma looked up from her computer, barely daring to hope. "Really? You're staying, I'm staying. And we're going to make this work." Emma launched herself into his arms, not caring who might see through her office windows. "I can't believe you risked everything for us." "It wasn't a risk," James said, holding her close. "It was an investment in our future." 6 months later, Emma stood in front of the bathroom mirror in James's penthouse apartment, adjusting her dress for the company's annual gala. It was the same mirror where she had cried 6 months earlier, but now she barely recognized the confident, radiant woman looking back at her mom. "You look beautiful," Sofia said from the doorway. She had grown comfortable in James's home, treating it as a second residence where she had her own room and art. Supplies scattered across the kitchen table. "Thank you, sweetheart." "Are you excited about staying with Tyler tonight?" Sofia nodded enthusiastically. She and James's son had become fast friends. Bonding over video games and a shared love of science fiction movies, James appeared behind Sofia, looking handsome in his black tuxedo. "The car is here whenever you're ready," as they arrived at the gala. Emma marveled at how different she felt from the scared, overwhelmed woman who had broken down in a company bathroom. The past 6 months had been a whirlwind of professional success and personal growth. Her innovative financial strategies had earned recognition throughout the industry, and several headhunters had approached her with offers from other companies. But she was exactly where she wanted to be. The announcement during the gala's dinner portion. James stood up to address the crowd of employees, clients, and business partners. 6 months ago, our company faced a challenge that tested our values and our commitment to doing what's right rather than what's easy. He began, "Tonight I want to share the results of that test." Emma's heart raced, unsure what he was planning to say. Our senior financial strategist, Emma Rodriguez, has not only exceeded every performance expectation, but has redefined what excellence looks like in her field. Her work has generated over $12 million in new revenue and cost savings for Sterling and Associates. The crowd applauded, and Emma felt tears of pride in her eyes. But more than that, James continued, Emma has reminded us that great companies are built on recognizing talent wherever it comes from and having the courage to support people who challenge us to be better. James walked over to Emma's table and extended his hand to her. "Emma, would you join me?" Emma stood up, her heart pounding as James led her to the front of the room. 6 months ago, I made a decision that some people thought was risky, James said. His eyes locked on Emma's. "I chose to fight for someone I believed in, both professionally and personally. Tonight, I want to make another decision that some people might think is risky." Emma's breath caught as James dropped to one knee, pulling a small velvet box from his jacket pocket. "The proposal, Emma Rodriguez," James said, his voice carrying across the silent room. "You saved me in a bathroom 6 months ago, though you didn't know it at the time. You reminded me that success means nothing without someone to share it with, that love is worth fighting for, and that the best things in life come from taking chances on people who matter." Emma's hands flew to her mouth as tears streamed down her face. "Will you marry me?" James asked. "Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving that you made the right choice and trusting me with your heart?" "Yes," Emma whispered, then louder. "Yes, absolutely yes." The room erupted in applause as James slipped the ring onto her finger and swept her into a kiss that tasted like champagne and promises. The happy ending 1 year later, Emma and James were married in a small ceremony in James's backyard, surrounded by family and close friends. Sofia served as maid of honor and Tyler as best man, both children having embraced their new blended family with enthusiasm. Emma had kept her position at Sterling and Associates, but had also started a non-profit organization providing financial literacy education to single mothers. James supported her passion project, both financially and emotionally, often joking that he had married the most overqualified financial counselor in the state. As they danced at their reception, Emma marveled at how dramatically her life had changed since that night she had broken down in the company bathroom. "Any regrets?" James whispered in her ear as they swayed to the music. Emma looked around at the celebration surrounding them. Sofia was teaching Tyler how to do cartwheels on the lawn. James's parents were chatting warmly with her mother, who had flown in from Phoenix. Their friends and colleagues were laughing and celebrating their love story. "Just one," Emma said, smiling up at her new husband. "What's that?" "I regret that it took me so long to realize that crying in bathrooms sometimes leads to the most beautiful beginnings." James laughed and spun her around, both of them dizzy with happiness and the promise of all the tomorrows they would face together. Sometimes the most unexpected moments lead to the most extraordinary love stories. And sometimes, when you think you're falling apart, you're actually falling into exactly where you belong.